From Geppetto Studios in New Freedom, Pennsylvania, welcome to the Cosmic Geppetto Podcast, your home for inclusive, positive geek culture, where we talk about movies, comics, music, books, and whatever else we feel like. Please welcome your host,
cocked and loaded at all times,
Brad Mendenhall.
Hey kids, it is a cranky episode of the Cosmic Geppetto Podcast. Shawn returns for another cover conversation. Here's the thing. I pride myself on being positive about pop culture on this show, but I have a couple tender spots when it comes to certain music personalities. Somehow, each of the people that really tick me off came up in this episode. I go off a little. Sorry. Anywho, Katie has a question.
What creator do you wish was more popular? Why?
As always, that is a great question from Katie. It's one I had to do quite a bit of thinking on. The first name to come to mind is Joss Whedon. In one way, that's silly because this is a guy who's directed two of the most financially successful and popular movies of all times with Avengers and Avengers Age of Ultron. But when it comes to his original content, he tends to create cult series. So I guess probably the most successful thing that he's done that was original was Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And while that certainly has a lot of cultural hold, but that was never a big rating superstar. It wasn't Friends. It was even had less mainstream success than Alias, which was J. Abrams, who I always considered to be J. Abrams to be Joss Whedon, who had his finger better on the pulse of pop culture and was able to create things that were more mainstream. So it would have been really nice if Joss Whedon could have finally sort of solved that trick of creating something that wasn't just great and fun and interesting, but also was more inviting to the general public. So that's who I would say, like as a director or TV movie creator. When it comes to music, this shouldn't be any surprise to people who have heard me before. Three of my favorites are Matthew Sweet, who had a little bit of mainstream success with Girlfriend and 100% Fun, but he's definitely not a huge name. It got to the point where his most recent album, he did a Kickstarter campaign to finance it. When you're doing Kickstarter campaigns, you're not a huge mainstream success. Also, Chris Whitley, who you'll hear me talk more about in the conversation about Ready to Have with Shawn, just an amazing musician who created some beautiful work that was just a masterpiece. He should have been bigger. And Marshall Crenshaw, who created brilliant pop rock songs, sort of considered a one-hit wonder with his brilliant song Someday, Some Way, and also had a really huge hit that was written for another band. He co-wrote the song Till I Hear It From You, which was a big song for the Gin Blossoms. This is sort of the opposite of what Katie asked, but one person who I'm glad didn't become bigger than they are is Ben Folds. I think Ben Folds is exactly where he should be. He puts out great music, does fantastic tours, and is able to do neat music with different collaborators. And I think if he had tried to be any more mainstream, he wouldn't be Ben Folds. He'd be Billy Joel. And that's not a shot against Billy Joel, but Billy Joel's Billy Joel and Ben Folds is Ben Folds. Not everybody needs to be a superstar. So again, Katie, thank you. That's an excellent question.
Johnny, take a walk with your sister the moon. Let a pale light in to fill up your room. You've been living underground, eating from a can. You've been running away from what you don't understand. Love, she's slipping, you're sliding down. She'll be there when you hit the ground. It's alright, it's alright, it's alright. She moves in mysterious ways. It's alright, it's alright, it's alright. She moves in mysterious ways.
We haven't done this for a while. Hell, it's been too long since we talked, so it's time for a cover conversation. Which is amazing because we don't have a theme song for this. You made a theme song for everything else, but not your own bit.
I just never thought of it. It should be a cover, right? It should be.
It should be. It should be.
Maybe after today I can learn how to do one of the covers that we talk about today.
Well, you don't have the easiest time playing other people's music, right? You don't read music or self-taught.
Up until recently, I really don't know what I was playing. I don't know. You're right. I don't know how to read music. But one step further, I didn't even know chords that I was playing. I'd say in the last couple of years, I started learning correctly the names of chords, which has helped. But yeah, I can't say that it's just never really been a thing of me. I just never had too much of a desire to sit down and learn other people's songs.
Well, this is a reason for you to start.
Yeah, maybe.
One of the things that inspired me, I found online, it's called Altered Sweet, a tribute to Matthew Sweet. And I'm a huge Matthew Sweet fan. Have you had a chance to look over the album?
No, I was actually trying to find it on that Future Man Records website. And they said that obviously the hard copy is sold out. And actually, now that I say that, I see the list pop up now, but it wasn't coming up on my phone. But no, I haven't really had a chance to look it over.
There's 27 songs. Not that Matthew Sweet has had he's definitely an indie darling. It's not like he has a bunch of hit songs. But what impresses me is it's not just Sick of Myself, Girlfriend, Time Capsule, I've Been Waiting. Those are the easy pickings. Those are the songs that got radio play and they got music videos made of them. It's a deep dive, including the song that I suggested, When I Feel Again.
Smart, but I don't know. Every now and then I guess it starts to show. And I'm just like you, I don't wanna be alone. I don't know what to do. I'm sitting around at home, waiting for love to appear. When I feel again, wasted the best of my time.
When I Feel Again was off of his second album, Earth. And that was the last album he did before he broke through. Because his third album was Girlfriend, and that had the great title track, and I've Been Waiting, which got some play on MTV. And that was sort of where he broke through. I've seen Matthew Sweet in concert a bunch of times. I have never seen him play any song off the first two albums.
I actually remember buying Earth. Even back then, I may have not been as wise to the nature of production. Daggone, I remember that the production of the album just really, really turned me off. And maybe just liking a little bit of a song here and there. What about yourself?
I bought Girlfriend, loved it. My 16, 17-year-old brain's like, okay, what else does he have out there? I remember going to the record store, and this was an age when there was, CD record shops, and the guy who worked there knew me. Like, I would walk in and was like, oh, there you are. And asking about, was like, what else has Matthew Sweet done? And he finally, I think he had the special order, Earth and Inside. Now, Inside is really poppy. A lot of sound effects and keyboards and drum machines. Earth was ever so slowly getting away from that, but it was still there. When I Feel Again, it's the only song off that album, off of Earth, that if you had it on Girlfriend, off of Altered Beast, 100% Fun, it would have fit. It had like a great guitar work and an actual drummer instead of a drum machine. So it was a good song. It was like the one song that I really listened to off of those first two albums. But yeah, I remember listening to Earth is like, oh, okay. I recognize the voice. Sometimes there's a hook in there, but it was more just owning it for curiosity rather than liking it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, I remember liking one song back then, but I don't even remember the song. And matter of fact, today I listened to the album to get ready for today. I thought it would come back to me, and it doesn't even come back to me. The whole album, and I don't know the details, or the certainly don't have liner notes in front of me, but it's just a very flat recording, if that makes any sense. Like there's not. I don't know if it's the engineer. I don't know if it's the producer. I feel like there's some good songs probably underneath there, but it gets kind of lost in the mix. It's just a very flat, lifeless mix. And I don't, yeah, like I said, I don't know the details, what was going on or with the label, but I know after this album, the label did let him go, right?
Yeah, they let him go. He recorded Girlfriend, which was sort of his breakup album. His first marriage fell apart. He was going to all the different labels, and I love this story. He sent it to, what was it, I think Zoo Entertainment.
Yeah.
They passed on it, but they kept a copy of it. Somebody put the album on the company's PA, and the head of Zoo was like, this is fantastic. Who is this? It's like, it's Matthew Sweet. He's like, well, but why haven't we signed this?
Yeah, I remember you sharing that story with Richard Lloyd when you had him on there, one of the guitarists for that album. And I don't think that Matthew Sweet's songwriting dramatically changed. I just think that's a well-recorded album. It's got a lot of life to it. But I'd have to think his style didn't change that dramatically. It's just his art of recording changed, it seems.
You know, I don't know, and I'm being unfair, but whatever. I'm allowed to be unfair.
Right.
I were to guess, he did Inside, he did Earth. You see a progression from one to the other. I would like to believe When I Feel Again was like, oh, this is what I should be doing. Like, that was the song where he finally sort of figured out a sound. It's like, hey, I don't like drum machines. Which is funny because you and I have both created our own music using online drum machines. I understand the need for it.
Out of necessity, yeah. Or out of limitations, right?
Right. I can't drum myself.
Even if I could, I don't have drum set here.
The closest I ever did to live drums was when I did the theme song to Minute of Darkness. But all that is me tapping a pen against the desk, recording that, and then I washed it in reverb to give it like a creepy sound. That's the closest I've ever been to recording with a drummer, is me just tapping a pen for 2 minutes. And I felt like an idiot because I'm at my desk tapping a pen against the desk with the microphone right up against it. I'm like, this is going to sound like crap. And it actually turned out all right.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. You get creative. I had quite a bit of percussion on my cover of your theme song for A Minute of Darkness. Not entirely dissimilar. I was banging on random things. And then, like you said, washing it over with some effects to try and make it sound like a drum. So yeah, at least you get creative.
I would just like to believe Earth, and when I Feel Again. And I have heard that, like I said, I've never seen him perform a song from his first two albums live in concert. But I have heard that he did that one song would show up in some sets after Girlfriend. It seems like, and again, I'm not being fair because I don't know, I haven't talked to Matthew Sweet. By the way, Matthew Sweet, if you are listening, I want you on the show so bad. I think he knew, okay, this is the song, this is the style, and then dove deeper. And then, again, going through some personal turmoil and his own challenges that added a layer of depth and immediacy to his songwriting. And also, you mentioned I talked with Richard Lloyd, who played guitar on Girlfriend, him saying that Matthew Sweet was going through a real tear listening to the Beatles' Revolver and taking inspiration from that.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah.
But let's talk about When I Feel Again as performed by the Hangabouts, who I've never heard of before. What'd you think?
Really liked it. I immediately after this, I listened to the cover first, and then I was like, "Wow, how the heck did I overlook this?" Right, the song is, and going back to listen to Matthew Sweet's original, it's actually quite easier to overlook the production now than it was, I guess, then. But it is a good song. It's an excellent song. I really like that they chose that song and found something underneath that flat production and brought it to life. Kudos to them. I like it. Like, you could release this now. Matthew Sweet could even record it with them, and I think it would still be just as relevant today. It's a great song. What about yourself?
I really liked it, and again, I like that song. It's a song I listen to like in my big list of favorite songs on my iPod. When I Feel Again is the only song from this early period of his career that is on that list that I like hit with the check mark to be on my favorite playlist. Even then, there's certainly a rawness to it. A lot of that first two albums feels like demo tapes. This is before that era, but it sounds like a talented guy recording on his home computer. Stuff that you and I have done, and that we know plenty of people that have done. So using drum machines instead of drums because you can't afford a drummer or you can't afford a space. Tinkering with toys because the toys are fun, or anything to fill out the sound. What the Hangabouts did is they took those bones of a good song and then they expanded on it in a way that Matthew Sweet didn't at the time, either because it didn't have the technology to record at home the way you do now, or he was one of the producers of the album himself. Maybe he didn't have as much experience, or whatever the reason. But they were able to take this cool song and fill in the blanks and color it a little bit. And I really liked it. There's quite a few songs on this that I like. I mean, like I said, it's 27 songs. They did Quiet Her, which was from his first album. Stuff from his later albums, Behind the Smile, What Matters, which were from Millennium Blues. Bird Girl, which was from one of his later albums. These aren't his big songs. But then, of course, there's I've Been Waiting, and a really very good version of Girlfriend, which I considered talking about, but it was almost too obvious, by an Australian performer named Michael Carpenter, which was very cool because Carpenter, and the video is him recording everything himself. They showed him actually recording the drums, the bass, all the guitar parts, and I think a young woman giving him some background vocals, and that was it. It's like just two people, but it was actually a really good cover. I don't think I've ever seen a cover of Girlfriend before.
And is it a straightforward cover, or does it get turned around upside down or anything like that?
Pretty straightforward.
I mean, with a song like that, I think anything else you might get disappointed. It's such a rockin' tune, right? And that song still holds up after all this time.
Five Guys with my daughter. Girlfriend came over the speaker. I embarrassed my daughter so much. Because there's just something so cool about a song that you love being played in the wild. It's different than when it comes up on your CD player or your streaming, whatever you do to listen to music. When you control the environment, it's great that you hear the songs you love. But it's so cool when you're like in a restaurant or whatever, and there's a song playing over a speaker, and it's like, ah. And I embarrassed her so much because not only did Daddy sing along to the song, Daddy sang the guitar solo. She's like, Dad, stop doing that. It's like, can't, gotta sing it.
I definitely have to check it out. And I'm certainly going to be adding the Hangabouts to my playlist to check them out more. And I mean, I'm even going to go back and listen to Earth again, Matthew Sweet's album, because listening to his version, I do like it. I'm not sure how, like I said, I think I just overlooked it because of the production. I'll tell you what, I'm looking online now. You would not believe the folks he had playing on that album. He's got Robert Quinn. So they were already playing together. I don't know it doesn't tell me what tracks that Robert Quinn played on.
He did the solo on When I Feel Again.
Oh, okay. Chris Stammy is on there as well. Huge fan of Chris Stammy from the DBs. And it's funny, the production actually reminds me of some of the DBs recording. Sometimes I struggle to get through the DBs recordings for the same reason. And then Richard Lloyd, actually, that's who I meant to say, who continues to play with Matt. Actually, both of them play on Girlfriend. So he definitely had other folks playing with him. Now, I don't know if it's all the songs or some of the songs, but very interesting how a few years, literally 2 years between Earth and Girlfriend, what a dramatic change in sound and production.
It was really a pretty impressive leap forward. Artists used to have time to do that. Bruce Springsteen, I remember reading an article about Bruce Springsteen. Bruce Springsteen put out quite a few albums with little to middling success before he broke through and became the biggest person on the planet. It was easier to nurture artists then. Now, it might be happening in a different way because there's no money, but because you can record cheaper, you might have artists making home recordings and doing some cool stuff. I mean, I know it's big in the hip-hop community where they make their own mixtapes and self-promote that way and then grow as an artist so that by the time they hit big, they have a really developed sound. Back in the 80s, early 90s, you weren't able to do that. The only way to really make an album was to spend a lot of money for mediocre results.
And to that point, I like this idea of current bands taking things that might have been overlooked in the 80s or the early 90s, and maybe they got lost in the shuffle. Fortunately, there wasn't really a lot of avenues to hear new music except for on the radio. So I think a lot of good music got lost. A lot of good music wasn't marketed because there's only so much money to go around. And then a lot of music, I think, might have been even impacted by the environment at the time. So reverb was big in the 80s, so let's wash everything over with 80s. I mean, wash over everything with reverb. If that's not your thing, then you might be overlooking a lot of things. Just as I overlooked this album, I think, with the production. So I like the idea of bands finding things that might have got swept under the rug back then and giving it a new life. In this case, I feel like the Hangabouts gave it a recording that it deserved in the first place because it is a good song and it brought some life to it. And I'm guessing they spent far less money bringing it to life than certainly what it cost back then to record a song. So good for them. I'd like to see more do that.
Talking about people covering stuff, your example was somebody covering their own music.
This is crazy. So I really struggled. Normally I have covers cocked and loaded at all times, but maybe too much time has passed or something. I don't know. But there really wasn't anything lighting my fire currently. So I was kind of looking around. But when I was revisiting Matthew Sweet's Earth, I noticed that he just had a single released earlier this year, May to be exact. But it's actually a single that it's actually Badfinger that has a single, and Matthew Sweet is contributing vocals. So I was like, oh, well, I think that seems appropriate for today. But I'm going to take it a little bit further than that and go a little bit deeper. But Badfinger has this song called Baby Blue. It was out in 71. They were on Apple Records, the record label founded by the Beatles. For whatever reason, I don't know the details, but Badfinger has covered themselves. They are redoing this song and released it as a single earlier this year.
Guess I got what I deserve. Kept you waiting there too long, my love. All that time without a word. Didn't know you'd think that I'd forget. The special love I have for you. My baby blue. What can I do? What can I say? Except I want you by my side. How can I show?
They didn't change really anything about the song. They just re-recorded it, and maybe it's about the singer that is singing on it. He's really the only member left of the original lineup, so maybe he just wanted a more current version. Maybe he wanted to take advantage of the technology that has changed. So I'm not sure the reasons for re-recording himself. It might just simply also be he wanted to sing with Matthew Sweet. Matthew Sweet does sing on the album. He's not doing the lead vocals, he's doing backing vocals. And it's nice, it's cool. And if you don't know, Matthew Sweet also recorded Baby Blue himself some years ago with Susanna Hoffs. I think it was they had 3 cover albums they did together. Is that right?
Yeah, they did 60s, 70s, and 80s. Yeah, you stumped me. I was impressed because you said, oh, yeah, Matthew Sweet and Susanna Hoffs did this on one of their albums. It's like, well, I know they did It's All Over Now, Baby Blue. I thought you made a mistake. And no, you proved right. It was like bonus material for one of those albums. I couldn't believe I missed that. I have some of the bonus material because they did, for one of the other albums, they did My Favorite Waste of Time by Marshall Crenshaw as a bonus. And they also did Train in Vain as a bonus on one of the albums. So I have a bunch of their bonus material.
Yeah, Train in Vain was a hidden track just like it was for The Clash. I thought that was pretty cool. But yeah, this was an extra track. I'd love to say that I knew that I had the deluxe CD back then, but I didn't. I just simply stumbled upon it doing a little digging up on the song. And I was trying to really figure out why the band was doing a cover of themselves. And I shouldn't say that. They essentially, I guess, wanted to re-record it with Matthew Sweet. Matthew Sweet and Susanna Hoffs also does a great version. All of those versions just reminded me of another band that recorded the song, and that was Portastatic.
Don't you know, times I've tried. I guess that's all I have to say. Except the feeling just grows stronger every day. Just one thing.
I think it was in the 90s. No, 2003. Portastatic recorded it on their album Autumn is a Lark, which is an album they did the same year they did Summer of the Shark. Basically what happened is they were touring for Summer of the Shark, and while they were on tour on their downtime, they were learning cover songs. So when they got back off the road, they just went in the studio and recorded some of these covers. And if you don't know, Portastatic is Mac from Superchunk, his side project. Most of the time it's just him, but in this case it is a band. So anyway, why should you care about this song? Because this song is freaking rocking, man. Every version is pretty cool. It is very, you can see Big Star right around the corner. You know, you could picture Big Star definitely jamming out to this.
I just rewatched the last episode
of Breaking Bad. Yeah, it's on there.
And Badfinger's version is what was like this final song that played as Walt's walking through the meth lab with a gunshot wound as he lovingly examines the equipment and succumbs to his injuries. And that song is what's playing as it fades to black. It's a perfect song for something like that. And Breaking Bad selected very good music. They never went for, hey, don't get me wrong, I love the song, but they didn't go for Time After Time or the most popular songs. They go for those sort of little bit below the surface gems.
Very similar to Sons of Anarchy does a pretty good job at doing that as well. So what makes this song so attractive? I don't know if you've ever read the words or are familiar with the song. I mean, it is a great song. Yeah, I don't know. What makes this stand the test of time, right? It came out in 1971. It's still being used all these years later.
It's an engrossing song. It has a lot of hooks. Just a lot of hooks. And it also really changes throughout. Like, I know you're an Oasis fan. Or you have been an Oasis fan. I don't know if you.
No, I'm an Oasis fan. It's okay.
It's hard to be an Oasis fan because they don't put out a lot of music and they're a-holes. But the music they put out was, for a period of time, was just brilliant. Oasis' most popular song, or most I would say most famous song is probably Wonderwall. Maybe Champagne Supernova is up there as well, but I would say Wonderwall. Fine song, very good song. But the one song that I really like is, and of course I'm blanking on it. Damn it! Now I'm going to have to cut this out. Not roll with it. Some might say.
Oh, yeah, that's a great song. Yeah.
It's a great song, and what I want to like about that it has in common with this, it's like 3 songs. There's so many hooks and left turns. It's like, wow, they just crammed 3 songs worth of inspiration and novelty into this one song. And that's the same thing with Badfinger, where just when you think you've sort of drawn a mental beat on it, there's a new hook. There's an interesting tweak of lyrics. And it's like, oh, okay. So you can listen to it a lot before your brain sort of puzzles it out.
There is a lot there, and it's I don't want to say an odd or weird tempo, but it's not a common tempo. It's not what you would typically use for, a rocking out tempo, but it certainly works. The guitar, I love what word did we use before grunge was a word, but that crunchy sound to it.
I was going to say crunchy.
Okay. So we'll go with crunchy.
And I think that's a borderline technical term. I think crunchy is something you use when you play guitar.
It's crunchy and fuzzy also as well. And I feel like the drums, you can feel the bass drum breathing. It's mic'd up really well. It's an awesome recording. And under all of this, there's an acoustic kind of keeping things grounded, if you will. That's kind of what the foundation of the song. But there's also these harmonies, right? The 2 guys are singing together somewhere, I don't know, mid song when it takes kind of a change, and it's really effective. And I wouldn't say they're doing all these harmonizing tricks; they're just singing together, which is really cool. And then there's that lead guitar. That lead guitar is pretty awesome. All of these things make a pretty cool, dynamic song, and it's so warm too. The original recording, it is so warm. I don't know if you get that same sense when you listen to it, but it still feels very warm. Like this is the beauty of analog, right? And this is the beauty of way the albums were engineered back then.
How do you like Badfinger's new version of it?
That's what I'm leading up to. So I listened to the new one, Badfinger covering Badfinger. The song is still awesome, right? If I didn't have the 71 version, then I would really love this song. I mean, it's still a great song, but it loses some of that analog. Now, I don't know if they recorded it analog or digital. I don't know the details. All I can tell you is it doesn't feel as warm. It doesn't feel like it's wrapping itself around me. The solo is kind of just, it's just kind of flat there with the music. It's kind of, and that's why, I guess why I spent so much time on Sweet's album Earth, picking on the production of it, because this kind of reminds me of that, where the production is doing a disservice to the song. Actually, I wouldn't say a disservice. It just isn't adding anything to it. And it could have been a great opportunity to maybe put the amps up to 11, or I don't know, maybe have some instruments drop out and let that acoustic come front and center. It just seems like so many opportunities that were chosen just to do a very straightforward recording.
So you've done some research. You don't know why they did this. Is that correct?
No. The best guess, it's a different singer, and he wanted to do it with Matthew Sweet. That's my best guess. I mentioned how the 2 parts, the 2 singers singing together is one of the cool things about the song. I feel like that's not even It's there. It's not like you point your finger in the air and say, "Oh, that's Matthew Sweet." You don't. It's just kind of, yeah, it's kind of there.
There's recently been talk, just recently in the news, Kanye West. We've done over 200 episodes of this show. I've never mentioned Kanye West before. Folks, sit down, because I know this isn't a cool thing to say. I don't like Kanye West. And I'm not talking about the fact that he's a jerk and weird and goofy and arrogant. I don't care about that. I got way too many Ryan Adams albums in my closet to pretend I get on the high horse about that. I don't think Kanye West is that good. Yeah, I know. This is a daring statement. I think he has some fair to middling songs, and I think he's done a very good job of promoting himself as a genius. And there's a funny thing. If you say you're a genius long enough, all of a sudden people start repeating it and believing it, even though the music doesn't back it up. I think his music is really mediocre. I think Stronger is a pretty good song, but I also think it's kind of repetitive. A lot of the other stuff I've heard, some of it was crap.
I'll come back to it. I'm gonna hear your point, but I'll come back to that.
So after that little diatribe, one of the many reasons he's been in the news recently is he's upset that he doesn't own the masters to his music, to his earlier albums. And he has talked about re-recording his old music. So he would own the masters to the new music. Taylor Swift has talked about doing the same thing. Taylor Swift, her biggest enemy in the music industry, a guy whose name I can't remember, bought her master recordings. She's very upset about it, and she's talking about re-recording her albums so she could own the new masters. And I want to say Selena Gomez or somebody in that genre did that. Like, there have been people who re-recorded that. Def Leppard did it. They re-recorded some of their songs because of a dispute with Universal Music. Now, I don't know if that's the case, but, it would be interesting. Who knows? Again, I'm not being fair here because I'm just basically going by gut instinct and some recent news. But what would be interesting is that song's gotten rediscovered because of Breaking Bad. And if they're like, oh, we're not making that much money because we don't own the recordings, let's re-record it as close as we can to the original, put it out on streaming, and hopefully we'll get more money because we have a very similar version that people will listen to that we get more of a financial stake in. So, yeah, Kanye West and others are either talking about or have done or will do this thing where they re-record stuff so they have the masters to the new music. I don't know if that's the case here, but it certainly seems possible.
Oh, no, that makes sense because they were completely mismanaged back in the day. And then, of course, Apple Records was mismanaged and fell apart. Yeah, just all sorts of bad things have happened financially. And not to mention the band really hasn't had much output. That would make total sense that could possibly be the scenario here.
Of the multiple covers, which one that you said, the Badfingers, fine. I listened to the Susanna Hoffs, Matthew Sweet, and I have all those albums. They cover some very good songs. They're all serviceable.
Yeah, I mean, it's fine. Yeah, I like Susanna Hoffs' voice, and I like their voices together. And I think that's what their version brings to the table is the harmony that those two have together. And it's nice. But the solo, the very thing that I like, it's just kind of there. But Portastatic, oh my gosh, Portastatic. He's into it. Him and the band is into it. And when that solo comes in, man, it is rocking. It is like you're just looking at, you're in someone's garage and they're just jamming out, right? Yeah, it's just, you're just into it, right? It is jamming. That is an example of what they're bringing to the table. Portastatic brings to the table is we're going to get into it and we're going to have fun. And it's very obvious. The singing is much more into it and emotional, and the drums are just banging away. And that solo, man, that solo kicks butt. So yeah, Portastatic for me. The original, nothing can touch it. But I enjoyed what Portastatic did to it. I enjoyed Portastatic saying we're going to really rock out to this as opposed to keeping it clean and reproduce it to the T.
I think that's the problem. I think that's where Portastatic, and I'm with you, I think Portastatic's version was the most fun and the most enjoyable aside from the original. I think it's because you're not going to outdo the original in terms of production and mood and having a clean version. So if you can't, you're not going to beat them at their own game, so try to do something really different. And in this case, that's, okay, we're just going to have like a sort of a fun, sloppier garage bandy feel to it, and that works really well. And Port Static's good at that.
It was just so fun, and actually, it was really my first exposure to the song. Maybe that has something to do with it, but man, it just rocks. It just rocks. Whereas the new version and Matthew Sweet's other version, if it came on the radio, I wouldn't turn it up, right? It would just kind of fit neatly in the background. And then the original, it's just awesome. It sounds like, I mean, I know the Beatles weren't recording with them. Actually, Todd Rundgren produced that album, but you could have put this on Abbey Road, right? You could have put this on the last Beatles album. That's how the recording reminds me. The Beatles could have easily done this song. And I'm not saying they were copying it. It's just it's a cool song, man. I hope people dig it up because it is a lot of fun.
The music is always... Shawn, I want to talk to you about something that music related, kind of, that just was in the news today, or perhaps yesterday. It made me lose my mind.
Okay.
Madonna is going to co-write and direct a biopic about Madonna.
Okay.
Have you heard this?
No.
Yeah, they announced it.
Well, she's going to, but she hasn't. Who's to say this will ever see the light, right?
That's a very good point. This is something that, gosh, what was it, 10 years ago? There were 2 Janis Joplin biopics that were going to be made, one starring Pink, one that they didn't have a star, but they had the rights to the music. So it could be one of those things that they announce now, but they're announcing it to try to drum up interest.
Before I hear your concerns, let's remind ourselves, she can act, she can sing.
Who?
Madonna. Yeah, I'm not saying she's going to Oscar material, but she has gotten accolades for her acting. She does a wonderful job of not censoring herself. That's part of the thrill about Madonna, that she's no holds barred. What's your concern?
Well, the concern is she cannot act. She's a bad actress.
How is she going to play herself younger, though? There's no way.
Well, first off, she's directing. She's not acting.
Oh, okay. She's directing.
As far as I know.
Okay.
As far as I know. They have talked about, there's a particular actress that apparently is in talks. They've shown pictures of this actress, and she looks like Madonna if she was attractive. And it's like, she looks the part. It's just she should be doing something better with her time than playing Madonna.
Yeah, I would like to see her have another director.
And Madonna's directed a couple movies, in fairness, but none of which have been hugely successful. Julia Garner is the actress that is in talks, and they show pictures of a young Julia Garner. She's been in Ozark, got a lot of positive press for that.
So is it that we don't need this movie, or is it that Madonna is so in the driver's seat with it?
I despise Madonna. You know this. I've never been able to tolerate her.
I don't think I realize the extent of it. This sounds like beyond the Timberlake dome.
Madonna is the prototype for what Justin Timberlake is. She had a couple of decent pop songs in the 80s, but not great songs by any stretch. She has a weak voice. She's a pretty stiff dancer. Like, all the things that she's credited with, she's not very good at. Not that she's bad, but go to your local amusement park where they have song and dance numbers, and you're going to find 40% of the people there are significantly better than she is.
I wish there was someone today that I could compare her to. I mean...
Justin Timberlake. Justin Timberlake is the closest...
I mean, as far as being big, she's probably Lady Gaga big. Maybe Beyonce big. I mean, people for a long time in the early 80s, it was always who was your allegiance, the Madonna or Cyndi Lauper.
Oh, yeah, and you can't argue that she sold a lot more albums and has had pop culture relevance a lot longer than Cyndi Lauper, even though Cyndi Lauper was 18 times the singer and 1,000 times the songwriter that Madonna ever dreamed of being. But Cyndi Lauper wasn't as good. She wasn't good at adapting to the times. Cyndi Lauper, you see Cyndi Lauper, she still looks like the same person, the same haircut and the same demeanor that she had when girls just want to have fun. She didn't adjust, and Madonna's very good. She's a chameleon.
She is a chameleon. She likes money, but she also was a trendsetter. it is more about publicizing yourself, right? It is more about shock value, I think.
Excellent marketer.
Fantastic marketer, fantastic business person. So would she have been as big without these dramatic turns that she took?
Dear God, no.
Maybe not. Maybe not. But she did have some good songs, man. Still stand by, I don't think she wrote it, but Borderline?
In fairness, I think she's written most of her own music. Now, for most of the cases, that's an accusation as opposed to credit. But yeah, Borderline, fine song.
Like I said, I didn't buy her albums because I swore allegiance to Cyndi Lauper. I stood up in my second grade class and made that clear when we had to choose sides. But I did, when Cyndi Lauper stopped putting out the music, I did pick up True Blue. That was a great album. Yeah, so I think we're learning a lot about each other. I didn't jump on the Like a Virgin train by any stretch. I thought it was kind of, My only complaint of her being, I'm okay with her being in control, but I hope that she gets some others to get some really outside input and outside perspectives.
Aside from the fact that she's terrible and not an accomplished director, I mean, she's somebody who's directed some movies that nobody watched. You have a real problem where whenever the subject of a documentary, subject of a biopic has that much control over it, you're going to get a really boring, bland, one-sided thing. And especially with somebody who's proven to have as much ego as she has, how is she going to show herself being vulnerable? She wrote a children's book that was very obviously about her and how she was the British Rose or something like that, and how all the other roses were jealous of the British Rose because it was so beautiful. And so I was like, oh, for sakes.
That reminds me of when she had that English accent for a little while, remember? Queen had a lot of control over their biopic. Elton John had even more control over his. Now, I think both obviously were smart enough to get a different director and get input from others. So it can be done and still have a lot of control. So I hope she reconsiders the directing part. She financing it too?
Oh, no, of course not. No, she's smart. Listen, she's smart. She's a good business person. In the same vein as Gene Simmons, Justin Timberlake. These are people with mediocre talent on the best day of their life, but they're smart business people. And listen, it's very telling, the 80s pop icons, you had Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston, George Michael, Prince, and Madonna. Madonna's the last man standing because while the rest of them were immensely talented, in a lot of ways they got burned up by their own talent and the drive and basically the mental dysfunction that goes into becoming that talented. And the person who was more interested in taking care of, like, staying in good shape and being a good business person and wasn't consumed with actually making good music is the person that's still alive. Which means Justin Timberlake's going to live to be 1,000.
You are brutal. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, I'm at a loss here.
Listen, I give credit where credit's due. She is a superstar. And there aren't any anymore. There's Beyonce, but Beyonce started 10 years ago.
Yeah.
There's Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift's been around for 10 years. The longevity she's had in a brutal business, being a woman in a brutal business, you can't take that away from her. So I tell you what, when she was picked to do the halftime show at the Super Bowl, I was like, it's going to be terrible, but I understand why they picked her because who else is of that stature? And when she got put into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, I was like, it stinks because she's terrible, but she sold so many albums and has had so much influence, a lot of it bad, but listen, there's no Britney Spears without Madonna. Christina Aguilera would be so much of a better performer without Madonna. Justin Timberlake wouldn't exist without Madonna. So obviously in a lot of ways the world would be a lot better musically without her, but Lady Gaga wouldn't be around without Madonna. And Lady Gaga is a brilliant singer who learns, like, okay, I have to know how to repackage myself and market myself. No, but she also had the goods.
Yeah, she writes brilliant songs.
Basically, Lady Gaga is the alternate world good version of Madonna, where she actually is a good singer and a good actress. Where Madonna did the movie Who's That Girl, Lady Gaga did A Star Is Born. That's the difference between the two, is when Madonna would try acting, she was terrible at it. The only time Madonna did good acting was when she did Desperately Seeking Susan, where she was just basically playing herself, and she was a supporting player in that movie. And League of Their Own, where she was just basically playing Madonna, and she was the fifth lead in the movie.
I did like her in that.
Talking away, I don't know. I'm to say, I'll say it anyway. Today's another day to find you. You're shying away. I'll be coming for your love, okay? Take on me. Take me on. I'll be gone in a day or two.
What about Evita?
Yeah.
I didn't see him.
That's the movie, and she got, what was it, Golden Globe nomination for it. That's Halle Berry making herself look dumpy in Monsters Ball. Or Charlize Theron uglying up to get her Oscar. Okay, it's a showy Oscar bait thing, and everyone's like, oh my god, Madonna sings in a musical. But then 5 years later, it's like, you know, that movie was pretty bad, and her singing was really mediocre. So nobody talks about that movie anymore.
Remember when she came out to the? It seemed like everything she did. It was like, oh my gosh! It was so dramatic. It was so controversial. What was the video with all the religious stuff going on in it?
Oh, Like a Prayer.
Yeah. And then you watch it now, and you're like, what was the big deal about this? You know, that was...
And it's a boring, laborious song to listen to.
I'm sure she stirred up a lot of the controversy on her own, right?
Yeah, she took a bland, boring song, and she had a lot of weird religious imagery in it to stir up controversies. Like, it'd be like if Mambo No. 5, the video, had Piss Christ in it. I don't want to make it sound like Mambo No. 5 is as bad as Madonna music, because that's not the case. That song's catchy.
You know, in the history of music, I'm sorry to tell you, it's unescapable that she's one of the big ones.
She's a huge performer, and I think that's what irritates me. If Madonna had put out 2 albums that had a couple of hit songs and then was doing like the 80s Rewind tour with Madonna and Tiffany, I'd be fine with it. It pisses me off that Chris Whitley passed away in relative anonymity after putting out some of the best music of the last 30, 40 years, and you see really talented musicians doing Kickstarter campaigns to finance their next album.
I'm not saying it's the same, but Chris Whitley didn't have a lot of interest in playing with others, or at least fairly nicely. When you play with others, you make music with others, and you have work with producer, it needs to be some compromise. There's a way to have compromise or try things without completely surrendering. I mean, Chris Whitley is immensely talented. I watched that documentary that you turned me on to. I mean, I always respected him. The dude is amazing. But he was self-destructive. He wasn't interested in marketing it himself. He really wasn't interested in, I say playing with others as if I don't know what else to say. I don't necessarily mean musically, but I mean playing nicely on the playground is the best analogy I can think of. And then, of course, he had personal problems. So I don't think it's fair to say, oh, well, Madonna is big and she only has as much talent on Chris Whitley's Pinky. And that might be true.
No, you're right. I mean, she was very interested in becoming a star, and Chris Whitley was interested in making music.
Right. Excellent point. Yes.
And I hate that, but I think that's the problem. I hate that people who are driven by being a star sometimes have success and become stars and have all the accolades and the money and all the success. It's a shame that talent doesn't factor in as much as it should.
Fair enough. Good. Well put. And the two are compatible. It is possible that the two can be. You can be a big star and still have an equal, if not more, love of interest and making good music.
Hey, Prince was an amazing star and made some good music.
Prince was Prince. Prince was the best at everything, right? I forget where I saw that on. Best guitarist, the best. He was too good for us. If he didn't have a lot of hits, it certainly wasn't his. Well, sometimes it was his doing, right? But if I didn't like a Prince song, I'm missing something. It's not his fault. Think that highly of Prince as a musician and songwriter.
Bruce Springsteen is a megastar, and he's been a megastar since the 70s, and he's made good music that entire time. It can be done. It just frustrates the hell out of me. And that's why when Adele comes out and people are buying an Adele album, it's like, I'll buy an Adele album. It's like, you can listen to it. It's like, maybe, maybe not. But I want to support her because she's got a great talent. Amy Winehouse was an amazing talent. Those people break through and they somehow can reach that upper echelon being talented people. It's like, okay, God, let's get behind this. Because, oh, God, there's just too many Timberlakes and too many Madonnas and too many Kanye Wests who can't back it up.
That was the worst transition ever, Brad, just so you know. I don't even know how. You didn't even attempt to segue into that conversation. I had no idea. I mean, I knew there was a lack of admiration for Madonna, but I didn't realize the depth of it. I'm sorry, man. It'll be all right. It'd be nice to know a little bit more behind the scenes, but I don't want her perspective, right? Her perspective, we end up, I hope we don't end up like with another movie like Truth or Dare, which is, a bunch of hogwash.
Oh, God, that movie was so bad. I remember what really frustrated me. I think I can actually pinpoint the moment where my distaste for her music turned into hate. I was upstairs in my house in college, and the women who lived upstairs were watching Truth or Dare. It was when there was going to be a protest because of inappropriate behavior in her stage show. And you could tell she did this bit to stir people up and to, create the controversy. And then she had the nerve to read a statement saying, it's like, well, I'm an artist, and this is me expressing my art. And it's like, first off, the weird touching herself during the bit and all that doesn't match the music. She doesn't make very adult music. It's all very cutesy sort of music. The music isn't daring. So then she makes a stage show that is daring to stir it up, and then she's going to have the balls to talk about the artistic merits of it. When this is exactly why you did this. You created the stage show to create the controversy that now you're going to whine about, when this is exactly what you wanted. And I remember when I saw that, I just stood in the middle of the room. I was like, F this, and I left the room.
Yeah, playing the part, right? I'm going to do this to stir up the controversy, then the country's going to stir up, and I'm going to be like, what? What? Me? No way.
Really, the biggest problem is she's directing this movie and co-writing it with Diablo Cody, who's who's a really fine writer. When the subject matters have that much control, because right now they're making a Netflix TV movie starring Chris Hemsworth, best known as Thor, as Hulk Hogan.
Wow.
That could be a fascinating movie, because pro wrestling and Hulk Hogan have such a weird, carny background, and there's so much juicy dirt. But then it's like, and Hulk Hogan's on as producer, it's like, it's going to be terrible. Because this is a guy who got in trouble for sleeping with his best friend's wife, with his best friend's permission, and then just spouting off about he's kind of racist and saying the N-word a bunch of times. It wrecked his life, destroyed a major online publication in the process. Well, guess what? If he's producing that movie, they ain't talking about that.
Right, they're going to admit it. But I don't know. She still knows what works, and what works is... That's why I said I don't think she does much of a job of censoring herself. Well, that I know of, maybe. I don't know.
I think she totally does a job censoring herself. I think she censors herself all the time. And the things that she does that are quote-unquote uncensored are so pre-planned.
Yes, very methodical. Yeah.
I think she's completely censored.
That's a good point. Either way, I hope that there's an outside looking in perspective shared with her, and she allows it. But yeah, that's a lot of control, though.
Because I guarantee if I got a chance to direct the Brad Mendenhall story, it'd be terrible.
Right. Yeah. Mine would be, too. And I assure you, there are some very movie-worthy things in my life, but I wouldn't show those parts. I would, right? So I don't know. Someone like Elton John, I respect him, or he can let it hang out. Shoot, what did he hold back on? It makes you wonder, right? I mean,
Well, with Elton John, it's a case of, I think he's wanted to tell these stories for his entire life. And now that this society has changed enough where he can be very honest about him being gay, like he's excited to tell the stories, warts and all. And also, that movie had the advantage of really great music.
truthfully, certainly not in my top movies, but I really admire the different approach that they took with doing it. Can't really call it a musical, but I guess it's closer to that. I like the way, the approach they took to it. It was different.
All right, Shawn, so now that I've gone off on a diatribe and I've lost all those Madonna fans.
Yeah, I hope you take your blood pressure medicine after this.
All right, Shawn, do you have anything to plug?
I have nothing to plug.
All right, well, this has been awesome. We're going to do this again. So thank you so much, man.
I always love talking to you.
And that's episode 211. Big thanks to Shawn. He is the best, and I'm always thrilled when he comes back. Also, big thanks to Katie. Her questions do a great job of getting me thinking. We have a bunch more ready to share. Next time on the Cosmic Geppetto Podcast, it is our annual Halloween episode. Kyle Crane is back to talk about horror movie icons. Till next time, in the words of Jarf Hardin,
see you in the funny pages.
Shattered dreams, feel like I could run away from this empty heart.
Subscribe to the Cosmic Geppetto Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, or wherever quality podcasts can be found. Rate and review us while there. Follow us on Twitter @CosmicGPod, and we will follow you back. Unless you're a jerk. We don't follow jerks. Like us on Facebook at facebook.com/Cosmic Geppetto. We love hearing your ideas for upcoming episodes. Email us at cosmicgeppetto@comcast.net.
Banging on random things.
Shattered dreams, feel like I could run away from this empty heart. You said you'd die for love. I thought it was you who said you'd die for love. And now you're giving me nothing but shattered dreams. Feel like I could run away from this empty heart. And now you're giving me nothing but shattered dreams. Feel like I could run away from this empty heart. You said you'd die for me. You said you'd die.